Well, more money could be headed to local law enforcement agencies in Maryland. Governor Wes Moore today announced more than $124 million of his proposed budget will go toward helping agencies acquire additional resources and pay rising overtime costs. This money comes on the heels of what was a record year for violent crime numbers in the state of Maryland. Both homicides and non-fatal shootings were down statewide. I think the governor's citing around 40% or so. Now, while the governor, of course, celebrating a drop in homicides around the state since he took office, as we have been reporting, Baltimore City also just marked the lowest homicide rate recorded in half a century. So we're joined now by State's Attorney for Baltimore City, Ivan Bates, who, along with others we saw earlier this week, joined the mayor at City Hall to commemorate this historic drop. So I went to your website and read some of the information, and you're crediting the drop in terms of your part of it in a rebuild in your office. What kind of rebuild are we talking about? What made the difference?
Yeah, 1,000%. First of all, so glad to see you. Happy New Year to everyone. When we came in the office, there were 140 prosecutors. They weren't very trained very well, a lot of young prosecutors. We spent a lot of money on training. We've hired now up to 200 prosecutors. We're able to take the more complicated cases. Remember, I said we weren't not only going to rebuild the office, but focus on repeat violent offenders. And when you look at the numbers, what we realize is when the prosecutor's office is putting repeat violent offenders in prison, the crime numbers go down. We looked all the way back from Greg Bernstein's time period, all the way through Miss Mosby to our office. And 300 murders every year during the Mosby administration. It didn't matter who the mayor was, but what mattered was the prosecutor. And so our office this year, for instance, we prosecuted, the police made 1,160 arrests of repeat violent offenders, and our office found 682 of them were guilty, of which 443 went to prison. That's 65% of those individuals went to prison, where in 2022, the police made 1,577 arrests, where 869 of those individuals were found guilty, but only 267% of those individuals went to prison. That was 31%. So what you see is when you put repeat violent offenders in jail, they're not here to shoot anybody, and when they're not in the community shooting or being victims, then the crime numbers and murder numbers will definitely go down. If
they're prosecuted and they don't go to jail, who's the failure there? The prosecutor?
Well, the prosecutor, when you have 5 years without the possibility of parole, and it's the state's attorney's decision to make that call on that count. Every time an individual is charged with being a repeat violent offender with a gun, we, the state, say, yes, we want you to have 5 years without the possibility of parole. Not every case deserves that, but the ones that do deserve it, you invoke that, and it is the prosecutor's responsibility. Can't blame it on the judge, can't blame it on the police. You blame it on the state's attorney if they do not call that count.
And somehow you found money for 200 prosecutors to hire.
Well, the money was there. We just had to use it the proper way. And so we've been able to do that. Now, we definitely need more money because we want to have more prosecutors. And with, affordability, we have prosecutors who are afraid are going to be leaving the office because they're not able to receive the wages that they really necessarily need to do their job.
Okay, and yes, as I said earlier this week, we saw you standing with the mayor and a lot of other people representing different agencies around the city, and the mayor talks a lot about collaboration, that this is a collaborative celebration, that by working together, you'll go along with that?
Well, we all have to work together, and one of the things we're able to sit and look at is that we did a lot with GVRS in terms of our takedowns. We rebuilt the office doing wires.
What GVRS?
Well, GVRS is the Group Violence Reduction Strategy. That's the mayor's strategy. Well, we looked at what did we do, and this year we took 7.7 kilos of drugs off the streets and $16,000 in cash with the mayor's program. But we've also expanded because we have to work holistically with everybody. We're doing a lot with the FBI, the DEA, the ATF in Baltimore County. We took over 70 kilos of drugs with those organizations off the street and over $545,000 in cash. So we're doing some things with GVRS, and I know everybody's so afraid about us not being a part of GVRS, what's going to happen, but you see it's a small part of what we do. It's only 3.5% of our cases, but we're doing so much with so many other agencies, and that's a partnership and collaboration.
I got to stop you, but if you want to see these numbers in depth, just go to the website for the city state's attorney. Thank you for joining us,
Thank you for
Mr.
having me.
Bates, and we'll be right back.